Hey guys, back with another video today. Have a fun one. We have a special guest, a very special guest. If you guys haven't seen my video titled Sports Cards into House, we have Wentwhat Cards here. He's been investing in sports cards for years now, had a lot of success, if you can tell from the title of that video. If you haven't seen it, definitely go back and check it out. But even more importantly than that, me and Tristan have been playing basketball since we were little kids, and we've recently got into sports cards. He was one of the big reasons I actually got into it. So I thought, who better to talk about this crazy NBA season, talk about what's going on with sports cards than with you. So it's great to have you on.
Troy, thanks for having me. I was about to say like, hi, I'm Wentwhat Cards, but you said Tristan, so then I remembered
Yeah,
my
yeah.
name
I'm
again. We're all
I'm, I'm
good.
stealing your thunder. I'm introducing you wrong. That's the kind of shoddy production I'm running over on my YouTube
Good.
channel.
That's what has people coming back, right?
Exactly, exactly. But we're working through the bumps. This is the first one. Hopefully, we'll make this like a weekly thing. But for now, we just kind of wanted to hop on and talk about basketball cards. Talk about, more importantly, the crazy first week of the season. What have you been thinking about the games? I know you've been watching.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like first and foremost, I'm pretty excited to have the NBA back. Um, Especially like not being able to do much outside of the house. I know I spend like whenever I'm free, I spend my time watching basketball. Um, set up a nice big TV downstairs, and I have no excuse not to put the game on. And there's been a lot of like crazy finishes and a lot of overall exciting. You have a lot of players coming back. You had Steph and Durant out last year for big port, even Kyrie. A lot of players that were out last year that are now back. I think it's pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
I was kind of thinking the Warriors can go back. I'm not sure I need them on TV anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have lost that last game, I would have say let's just cancel the rest of the national televised games and get on with our day. But that was actually a pretty gutsy win.
Yeah, love to see that. Damian Lee, big time. Invest now, get in while you still can. But at least we have a former Warrior doing pretty well. Katie and the Nets look really, really good.
Yeah, the Nets look scary. I think they just lost tonight to Memphis, but that's coming off beating down the Celtics and the Bucks. They played the Bucks, right?
Uh yeah, I think so.
No, Celtics and Warriors. Hang on a sec. I'm getting ahead of myself. I
Well,
think they will be taking care of the Bucks.
yeah,
Um,
regardless, they look really
yeah,
good. The Nets, I'll honestly admit I was not a huge believer in them going into the season, but they look really, really good. Their bench, especially. But to keep it even more like, on the hobby, KD prices going up, and it seems like with good reason.
yeah. I mean, I think Durant was like the type of player that got a lot of national media hate, kind of similar to like LeBron years and years ago. Like you had a lot of players like Stephen A. Smith saying that was the weakest movie scene from a superstar ever. And that was kind of like the general consensus, right? Like KD the Snake was going around. It became popular to hate Durant. Um, I think moving to New York already helped his case. One, then people saw that he was trying to gut it out through a calf injury in the finals, goes down to a horrible Achilles injury. Um, so I think like overall people were rooting to see Durant back and at least excited to see him back. And I don't know about you, but like I was watching him play the Warriors, watching him play the Celtics, and it's not even like 75% back. At least the eye test seems like he's pretty much 100% back, at least on offense, hitting his same like patent hesitation pull up, and getting blocks and pretty much attacking the rim at will. Didn't seem like he's like there's no mental or physical drawbacks from what I could tell, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he's going up so much because who really didn't think he was going to be good when he came back? Like he's KD, especially the way his game is. Like I wasn't worried about how he was playing. I think the lingering question is still, can he stay healthy? I certainly hope he does. But it's interesting. Like I feel like a lot of this stuff you can see happening if you're ahead of it, at least card wise, it's going to work out in the Zion hype, the Trae Young hype. Who didn't see that coming?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think especially like those two guys you just mentioned, um, like Zion and Trae, like they're both young players. They were coming into the season totally healthy, and both in like pretty promising situations. Given like their team was young last year, so you have a lot of players that are supposed to take a step forward this year. But like going back to Durant, I don't know. I think I agree with you. Like people saw him coming back at least almost to full strength because like he's pretty much like a jump shot player. Like he can get his shot off over people. He doesn't need it. He doesn't necessarily like beat people with his athleticism or strength or anything like that. So like a lot of it is skill, but I think still there's a lot of noise that no one's really come back full strength. I think I was actually watching this video yesterday. It was Jimmy High Roller. I don't know if you know him, but pretty popular basketball YouTuber put out a video like what they won't tell you about Kevin Durant's return, and it basically documented like there's 18 other people that had torn their Achilles, and like of that 18, I think like a third of them retired or something like that. And then you had a bigger portion come back, and they were like 50 to 75% of their production level. And I think Dominique Wilkins was like the one other player that pretty much hit what he was doing before, or actually a little bit better after he came back. So I think I agree with you. I mean, I think me and you definitely agreed on that, but I know generally people were saying, let's see him play. And can he stay healthy, which is still yet to be answered.
Yeah, I mean, injuries are a factor with any player. So you have that in his defense. Speaking of injuries, John Morant, as we're filming, just I hope it's nothing serious. I want to say it looks like it was nothing serious, but um, I mean, I can't even say it's because of his risky play. Like, it's not like it was a crazy dunk or something. He was trying to block a shot or get a rebound. But you hate to see it, especially with, I think
Yeah.
he was literally the hottest player in the market, at least since the season started.
Yeah. His silver tens, I think we're up to like 5,000.
Wow.
Granted, there's other cards to go off of. I just know that's probably one of the more popular ones. Um, So his stuff was definitely going crazy, probably near double, or I mean, 50% to 100% increase from like the beginning of the year. And as they should, like I saw him put up 44, his career high, I think his second game in, or I know his first game put up 44, then followed it up with like 28, and just generally kind of showed like you were saying, like you could see him being the best player on at least a team that makes a deep playoff run. Like he was basically in that Luka, Trae, young guys that are knocking on like the tier one in the NBA, right?
Yeah, that's how I felt about Jock. Because, and you might even know better than me, because like I mentioned before, Tristan has a lot of sports card experience over years, seeing which guys make it to that top level and which guys don't. I just saw Jaw, and he's a number one player to me. He's just number one, and I won't get too far ahead of myself, but there's some top players, some top prospects we might talk about later, and I'm not sold on them as number one players on contending teams. Jaw has to stay healthy. He needs to get better, but just the gravity he has, and we've talked about it a lot. He's a smart player. He's really, really smart. The one of the things Luka, this might be a weird comparison, but Jaw to Tim Duncan, those really good championship players, they make their teammates better. They get their teammates in positions to win, and really Jaw does that every time I watch him play.
Yeah, and I think universally like loved around the NBA. Um, like to your point, I think there's kind of this negative connotation that he had. I mean, today's not a good example to talk about it, but people were worried about like injury concerns or like, is he going to ever develop a jump shot? But like, if you watched him play, like in terms of like someone like Giannis or something like that, like I know you mentioned this, but like Giannis still is learning how to become a basketball player. Um, he's obviously so dominant, 6'11", the wingspan, uh, his drive to get to the rim. Like he's a beast, right? He's a two-time MVP, but something about Ja seems like it was less like sheer athleticism and will that got him there. It seemed like he actually was making crazy second counters. Like his ability to adjust on the fly and make the right decision, whether that's a pass or like finishing, was insane. And like to your point, I think he's a really underrated passer and playmaker, and locker room guy. I think like injuries are going to be the only thing for him, which is definitely a worry. Um, but
Yeah.
he definitely has the intangibles and everything else to get there.
It's interesting. I think that this, even if it's a small injury, it may serve as a wake up call to people who are maybe new investors. I know it was a little bit of a wake up call to me, because I was looking at the profit on Jaw, like how much he's went up, and I'm like, you know what? He may keep going, but it may be smart just to sell a little bit right now, just to lock in that profit. Because I mean, I might be mistaken, but unless you are investing in like Giannis or Kawhi, there hasn't been many like shattered dreams over this last year, at least. Because a lot of the
Yeah.
people who are in now, they weren't there with Derrick Rose or even Blake Griffin. Like those guys were sure things. They were 100% sure things. and then it didn't work out. And that's like a part of the hobby that, fortunately or unfortunately, I think a lot of people haven't even experienced yet.
Totally. And like, I don't even know. I'm sure there's old timers that'll comment in your video and like bring up Tracy McGrady or Steve Francis or other players that like for 3 or 4 years looked like they were in the top 5 to 10 in the league with the trajectory to get to like number 1, 2, or 3. Um, I totally agree. I mean, not that it's like, I guess the silver lining in seeing an injury like that is just from a hobby standpoint, like not everything is going to always go up. Um, and I think it at least maybe serves as a wake up call. I mean, it sucks for people that, are investing in John Morant that just bought a card yesterday. It sucks that, the card went probably dropped a little bit and at least they'll have to wait to see him play for another, who knows how long. But to your point, I think it is definitely a wake up call. And it doesn't even take an injury. All it takes is if the Grizzlies would have started out like 5-15, you would have seen probably a similar
Yeah.
response.
There's so many different variables too. Like you said, it doesn't even take an injury. Like, if someone's made it and actually is listening to this podcast, they deserve like my real unfiltered opinion. I watch a lot of like hobby content, and people are sharing like, oh, I made this amount. Excuse me, I made this amount. I did this. I flipped for 5x. And even to an extent, I've done that. Like we shared our video, but that was very reserved. We talk about the risks and everything. Like literally, you never know. You could be all in on like select could jump right over optic a year from now. Like for whatever reason, you never know. Like there's so many like landmines in the hobby. You know what I mean? That's not
Yeah,
like injuries are probably the biggest one, but there's a lot that can go wrong, unfortunately.
totally. And like the variables when it comes to cards and like what people like over time is also another thing that you can't predict. And like I would say, like obviously we've seen Prism go crazy. It probably will continue to be, one of the premier. It probably will be the premier card. But I do caution people that you want to you want to stay away from cards that everyone else is always telling you to get. A lot of times the money's already been made or it's tapped out. Like you said, I love John Morant, or not even him as an example, like Zion. I think Zion's awesome. I think he has a potential to be great, but I'm not going to spend 150 on a gold or whatever 90,000 on a national treasures or whatever his prices are. I'm not willing to take that risk. I love the player. Maybe I'll pick up a smaller piece, but um, I'm definitely weighing what the general consensus is versus my own opinion.
Yeah, I always say like I think you want to zig when other people are zagging, and that applies to almost anything in life. But on a more positive note, there was some other standout players. Anyone else jump out to you from the games you were watching?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Brandon Ingram is one player. Obviously, we're talking about Zion, his teammate, but Ingram, I think, let me look up. I think I was looking up his stats. I think he's like 28, 7 and 7 right now, shooting 44% from the floor, but 47% from three on like 6 attempts a game. So he's hitting three threes a game and he's distributing, which I think was kind of the next step for him. One of the knocks when he was on the Lakers was that he's ball dominant, kind of a ball stopper. Can he get other people involved? I think we're seeing kind of like a 1A and 1B with him and Zion. And people forget like he's 23 years old, right? Like he was drafted in 2016 and I think he's got a whole lot of upside. He's still only 23 years old, and getting better. And then like to top it off, like if you are looking at Prism, PSA 10, let's look at his silver population. I think it's like there's 156 silver tens for him that year.
Wow, that's really
Um,
low.
yeah, if you compare it to like players today, like obviously Luka is like the example that stands out, but I think there's like 1900. So just take that into account. 1900 is not that much either. If it comes to other industries, like I don't, it's not a lot, but compared to 156, it's over 10x. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. We're going to try to provide context for you guys here because there's some people who are buying prisms. There's some people who are literally like, I buy hoops raw, which is fine. Then, Tristan, like I've mentioned, he plays in a lot of the high end waters, but I know you know this stuff too. But just for me personally, I was picking up Brandon Ingram optics for $13 each over the summer, and much lower pop count, first year of optic. And people are so tired of me beating a dead horse, but that is literally what Taylor and Horton Tucker base optics are going for right now. So insane. I think he has been so underpriced. Like you mentioned, his potential all-star, he could be all NBA, and he's so young, and he's on the Pelicans too. You mentioned Zion. That is a good thing. That is a really, really good thing. So
100%.
I'm hopeful for Brandon Ingram. I think we'll see. We'll see what happens to the Pelicans this year. But I mean, I was in on them in the bubble, and they didn't really do what I wanted them to or what I expected them to. But this could be their year.
Yeah, I mean, at least, and the thing is, like, even if this isn't their year, like, I totally agree, it could be, but like, if next year is their year, or if the year after is their year, they've got all these players that are in like the 20 to, or the, yeah, 20 to 23, 24 range, right? So they're so young. I think, as long as those two can coexist, which I think all signs, whatever, 3 games in looks really positive. Um, I think it'll be interesting going forward. And I think Ingram is definitely not tapped out in terms of how good he could be.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned correctly, this doesn't have to be their year. All it takes is a little bit. Like once people see that potential, even if it's just a flash for a player to be great or a team to be great or even good at this point, um, they can really fly. And actually, on that note, well, I'm trying. I'm growing, guys. I'm not going to bash on Taylor Horton Tucker. I want to talk about these young guys and specifically a website I've been using and a place that I think has been a great vehicle to flip them and capitalize kind of on their hype. I mean, I'll pose it to you broadly, but what do you think about Star Stock? I know you haven't personally spent that much time like actually, buying or selling on there. And also, what do you think about the idea of investing in Darius Garland, THT, all these young rookies? Because it's kind of like a never ending debate.
It's funny you mentioned Darius Garland. I know we didn't even talk about this before, but I was just talking to my buddy Chris about it, and I was talking to my buddy Darius about it. Like I like Darius Garland, and I kind of liked him before the year. I thought whenever I saw him play, he was pretty smooth. Like I like his game personally. Um, like granted, I'm not going to buy a card now, right? So he's had a couple good games. So generally, if there's a lot of people, uh, the Cavs are undefeated right now, one of the few undefeated teams. So there's going to be some hype already. So now might not be the time to buy. Then again, if he keeps it up, his prices could easily hold or even grow. But I think Star Stock is like, I'm pretty happy. Like anytime I see like a new software or a new marketplace enter the space, like I don't use it personally, but I think it means that people are creating uh, websites and trackers to help people track and invest. So I think uh, it's better. Like the more mainstream it becomes, like the better it is for me, at least. I think
Yeah.
it's cool. Also, like, it's kind of become a hobby of mine. So I think it's cool that other people are, thinking it's cool and it's picking up some mainstream popularity. But also, I think it helps going forward because it's just another tool for people to get to inform themselves.
Yeah, definitely. On that note, I was thinking you talked about our friend Chris and him getting into sports cards, and I was thinking, I was like, because he ended up buying, I think a Jaw Optic PSA 10 and a Select PSA 10 or something like that, which ended up working out pretty well for him. But the thing that's tough about getting into the hobby is like to an extent how it's been you almost need to be buying those graded cards that are going to cost you like to get into jaw for it to be worth your time. It's almost like you kind of have to spend $100 a pop. When you talk about shipping is $5, eBay fees. If I was, I'm still a small fish, especially compared to you, but I think about like people who really have a limited budget, like $50. That's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to start.
Yeah. And I think to your point, like people will collect what, like, not only what they like, but also what they have the ability to collect. So like, for a lot of people, they love Luka, they love a Luka card, but they can't necessarily afford a rookie card. So maybe it is worth them taking a risk on a younger player, or a player that plays for a team they watch often, um, or someone they just believe in long term.
Yeah, for sure. And to dive in like a little bit deeper, um, as I've mentioned, I'm done beating my dead horse about these guys, but what's your particular hesitation in staying away from a guy like Garland? Or, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you haven't really invested in pretty much anyone from this past draft class outside of, your Jaw and Zion.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even invested in those. I've helped my friends invest in them, and I almost bought a couple Zions before the season, but I don't know. I think my general theory is like, I mean, I've bought some Trae Young and some Luka, like 6 months ago or a year ago, but My theory is like generally like rookies when they come out, it's super expensive. So like their first cards that drop, um, aside from one or two players, I think prices generally drop. I think people know that, right? If you're buying packs, you're not going to get your money back,
Well, I don't
or
I
you're
don't
not.
think people know that. That's
Well, maybe
why.
people don't know that. I mean, there's enough people saying it, but I mean, and also like if it's a fun thing, I'm not against people opening up boxes. Because I think it's like totally could be a fun thing if they like doing it. People like doing scratchers and stuff like that. Like that's what I compare it to. For me, it's not fun. Like I don't like losing money. And I could get other enjoyment collecting a player, and having that player play well for me is just as fun, or obviously more fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we're skipping ahead a little bit here, talking about boxes, but I was watching some breaks of Flawless coming out, and that's 8,000 a box
wow,
resale.
that's it. You want to send me the link?
It's a cheap.
No,
It's
yeah,
cheap.
that's crazy. I mean, $8,000 for a box is ridiculous. I don't know what it's going to take for you to get your money
Could
back.
you ever see yourself
Never.
really
No, I've
even? Well, I'm
never.
not even
I've
gonna say really because I believe it, but like, let's say you were making
no,
500K a year
no,
off cards.
not the money. It's really not about the money. It's like a principle thing. Like I'd rather, if I had $8,000, I'd buy. I mean, there's any number of things I would do, but I'd buy probably a high end card or four cards in the $2,000 range. Because there's so much money to be made, and there's so many other cards that I'd like to have in my personal collection. Um, so like I mean, like to your point about young players and these boxes, I'm kind of more. I mean, the longer I've been in the industry, the more like I like to buy more premium players, premium cards. Generally, it does seem like that's what appreciates. Not to say like maybe I'm missing out on some like short term upside, but I think it's way safer, and a lot of times like the long term appreciation is there for the older players.
Yeah. And another thing I was thinking about too is like we talk about different approaches to the hobby. Like I sent out a huge PSA order today, and let me tell you, that took a lot of time. Like I'm thinking about all the time I spent buying, and then we had to do the card savers, and then we had to package it up, and then we're going to send it, and then we're going to wait for it to come back, and then I'm going to list each one individually on eBay. There's a lot of time to it, but and I think it's a similar thing. Like if you're short term flipping these younger guys, it's a time commitment. But
Oh,
we sound like this has now become like the washed up old
I
men
know.
at 25 years
Like
old
back in my
podcast.
day, like
No, but
yeah,
for real though, I was like, if you were like, I mean, you did it a little bit. You were more in college, but if you're in high school, like I'll bring up Star Stock one last time. Is like, I think we would just be grinding. You know what I mean?
100%.
Making $10 a day, $20 a day, and you just build it up.
Yeah. And like you were saying, I think they have the option to like you could buy a card, never get it shipped to yourself, and then sell it again. Um, it really doesn't take a lot. You could put $50 in and buy a player, and then 2 months later sell. Or like you said, you bought a card, and then a week later you sold it at like a 30% profit. Like that's really good money. And I think if you do that at scale, that's what it boils down to. Like that one sale is not going to like make you rich or make it a side hobby, or have it be any type of like real income. But when you do that 100 times, then it is. So I think that's what people don't really understand. Like, yeah, it takes time, but if you're able to repeat 30% 100 times, you can make really good money depending on what you're playing with.
Yeah, definitely. And I apologize. I'll move it on because I'm making this sound like a Star Stock ad or something. I think it's interesting, and I think it's a great way for people to learn. So we're going to move on now to a little bit of Q&A. I did this on my Instagram for the next episode or wherever we do this. Make sure to comment down below, and we'll do the Q&A as well. We'll start off. You know what? We'll start off with the easy. We'll start off with a softball for you. Who do you think is a sell now player?
Sell now player. Um,
I'll take it. I'll take this
you
one
go. You go
first.
first.
Yeah. Hot take. This is a fun podcast. We got some hot takes on here. I'm gonna say Luka. And I'll explain that a little bit. His Prism, this is like I said, it's hard to provide context. I mainly know what I own. His Prism PSA 9 base is over, or it was at least yesterday, over $700. Bids at 750. That is a lot for that card in that pop. Like Luka's been so hot. from all accounts, like I said, this is just quick glances at the market, but it seems like he's almost over where he was during the height of the bubble. Um, and I don't know. I like Luka a lot. I like the Mavericks a lot, but then I was thinking about it. It's like, how good is their season gonna be, though? You know what I mean? And he's, especially if you invested, like I invested not even that long ago, like in May or in June, and I'm up 3x on that prism.
Yeah.
So at some point, it's like you kind of, some of these guys, I guess I'll stretch it out to everyone. I was talking about draw. Some of these guys who have been really, really hot. I'm not saying get out of all of them or get out of basketball completely, but the market is really hot right now. And I think you might want to think about taking at least some profits.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would say like you have to look at like young players that have a lot of buzz that aren't necessarily in like winning situations. Like I know Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just hit a game winner. Um, like I personally don't have any of his cards, and I'm not going to tell anyone that has his cards to sell. But if you did force my hand, he'd probably be one of the players I'd be comfortable with letting go with, just because I don't believe in that Thunder team this year or next year necessarily. Even though they've been competitive, like they've been competitively lost by 1 point today, and they won their first game. So um, he could also keep his value. I just think in general, um, you have to think about how like what the overall like consensus is. Like we talked about, like there's oftentimes themes where players can't carry their team to the playoffs. Oftentimes the cards will cool off, especially after the first 2 weeks. Right, the Cavs are 3-0 right now. The Magic have been winning games, so I think you need to look at players that uh, are they going to keep up the production the whole year, and then are their teams going to be relevant in the playoffs? That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all attention and excitement at the end of the day. That's what drives prices. So I'd make the argument for even someone like Trae Young. There's a lot of excitement there, but I think it'll keep up. Like people are going to keep watching the Hawks. They're going to be, in the conversation for a playoff berth at least. He might, I mean, maybe a hot take. He has a chance to be an all-star starter. You never know.
That's not a hot take.
Yeah, so I can see that continuing to grow for Trae Young, but like SGA or I'm sorry, I can't help myself, Darius Garland, like are people going to be excited for them the whole season?
Yeah.
Like people are just going to keep watching SGA and I mean maybe they will, but in my personal opinion, for a lot of these players, like they can't just the excitement isn't going to just continue on that rise.
No, and like it's a good time for like this is kind of how I look at it, right? So if you're collecting cards so you can make money on one hand, but also if you're collecting cards, you could collect players you like and believe in. Like maybe if you're a Steph Curry fan, you could take some money from Shea or from one of these other young players you decide to sell. Trae Young, like I like Trae Young. I have a pretty nice Trae Young card, but let's say you decide to sell because it's a great time to sell. The Hawks look like they can be a playoff team. He's definitely got some like dark horse MVP. I don't even know if it's dark horse. He's playing insane. He's averaging like 37 a game or maybe 35 a game after today. But the Hawks look good and he looks good, and that's never a bad time to sell. Will you regret it if the Hawks make a deep playoff run? Maybe, but also there's a ton of his rookie prism always available, so you can always get it back unless you're talking about like a higher end card. So like to your point, I think you can kind of take money from these young guys and maybe shift it over to your long term. Who are you holding long term, and who are you comfortable with having your money in? A year or 2 years down the line.
Yeah, and one quick note that I'll leave people with: the football market very very hot at the beginning of the season, and even guys like Mahomes who looked as good as ever, if not better, like lost like 50% of his value, and now he's gone back up. But I will say, I don't think like it's not your last chance to buy some of these guys. That's what I'll say. Like if you really like Jaw or even Trae Young or some of them, or you believe in Garland long term, I don't think I've kept saying like this isn't the minimum. Like it's not like oh if don't buy Jaw, he's gone forever. So it's just something to think about. But okay, moving on to the next one. Thoughts on pricing value of Kaboom Downtown non-rookie cards over rookie cards. So I don't own any Kaboom or Downtown. I'm pretty sure you don't either. So just more broadly, non-rookie cards, inserts, even I know you do actually have some like high-end autos, I think that aren't rookies. What do you think of investing in non-rookie cards?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I probably have around 50 to 60 cards in my collection. And maybe like two of them aren't rookie cards. And it'd be like, I think one of them's LeBron. Um, I think they're both LeBron, but I mean, in general, I do collect rookie cards. That's not to say like you can't collect other years, but I think in general, rookie cards seem to be the most stable, um, and appreciate the most, and are kind of the coolest, right? Because it's like the first year they came out, and you could compare them to like players in past that had all their major cards come out. So I don't know about like the hoops kaboom stuff too much, but I think in general, I mean, if it's a nice card, and it's a second or third year, you can totally buy it. Or if it's like the year they won a title, totally you can buy it. But like from an investment standpoint, at least for me personally, I've found rookie cards to be the best. I do know though in the last like year, like second year Luka stuff has gone crazy. Second year LeBron stuff went up a lot, or like even the first year he did Prism, like the LeBron 2012 Prism stuff was really high. So there's totally a market out there for the non-rookie stuff, but I steer clear.
Yeah, there is a market and you can definitely make money on it. I just always say, just think about where is the demand going to come from, though. Like, I've seen people be like, oh man, like I can get a optic gold Paul George for this amount of money. And it's like, okay, but where's that? Do you know how many, like, he has that every single year? And also, how much demand is there for Paul George? Like, even some of his rookies are pretty affordable. The thing I like about Kaboom and some of the other like the big time iconic inserts, is there is that demand because people really love Kaboom. There's not, I mean, I don't think they do it every single year, at least not for every single player. So there is a, it's a case hit, so it's limited. Um, but some of that other stuff, yeah. Well, the other thing, thinking of demand, I was warning people, the LeBron Prism base PSA 10 was like huge. Like the prices that was going for was insane. And I said, I promise you, just think about it. Next year, no one will want that card. Like no one will want that card. I understand it's a championship year, but that's not how it works. That's not how it's ever worked historically. I mean, I guess things can change, but I guess the point is it's risky, but to his question in particular, I personally feel like for Kaboom and downtown, there is some merit to that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't buy personally, but you know, everyone's got their thing.
Yeah. And definitely also just from a collecting perspective too. I think it is fun every now and again to have like kind of like weird cards in a sense in the collection. Like for me, I just like the look of kabooms because they're different.
Yeah.
But okay, moving on to the next one. Okay, here's one. Is Tatum a top player? I think we might have touched on him a little bit. I don't know. We talk about Tatum and cards so much in our free time, so I forget what happened before and what's happening now. But what are your thoughts on Tatum?
Yeah. I'll keep it brief because I know you have your piece, and I think it's kind of good because we aren't necessarily aligned here. Like I don't think Tatum right now is a top like tier. Like I don't think he's in that top 6 to 7 that everyone talks about. Um, but he's 22, and I think he has a chance to be really special. Like I think he has a chance to be a top 3 player in the league. Um, Given that he's shooting like 40% from three every single year. After watching him play the Clippers last year, regular season game, but he put up like 40, um, and was like super clutch down the stretch, and then was also locking up Kawhi on the other end. Um, 8 players that can shoot and defend at elite levels don't grow on trees. And then you add in that he can actually take over games and create his own shot, and is in Boston on a good team. So I'm really excited about Tatum going forward. Um, I don't think he's a top player now, but I think he's got elite upside, Finals MVP potential. And I'm big on Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it kind of brief actually because I talked about this actually in my video that released today. But I was talking to someone on Instagram, funny enough, and he was saying like, "Oh, I like Tatum, all this stuff," and he was like, he learned from Kobe. He's just got to work on that like Mamba killer instinct or something like that. I was like, you know what? That's actually it though. When I watch Luka, I watch Jaw, or I'm like, that's that guy. Like, you know what I mean? You watch them and it's like, that's the dude. Like, I'm scared that he has the ball in his hands with down 20 seconds left. I personally don't feel that way about Tatum. And maybe that's a lazy take, but, and he can improve. Like you said, he's still young. He has the potential to get there, but I just don't view him as like that killer number one right now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, especially where his prices are at right now, he's being priced as such. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that kind of scares me.
I totally agree. And I think to your point, like he does have kind of that Kobe, um, sometimes he's taking tough shots, working a little too hard for shots, or just taking bad shots. I think in general, his shot selection has to at least be adjusted, or he's got to continue to make, because he takes and makes really tough shots. Like even last year on that run, like he was hitting step back and sidestep threes at like elite, like James Harden levels. Um, so like I think he either has to get really good and keep hitting them, or slowly, get better at attacking the basket, creating for other guys, getting to the foul line.
Yeah. I mentioned a little bit in my video today, but I think Anthony Davis is really, really good, and he's going to win another title with a player not named LeBron. And it'll be interesting to see who that is. I mean, that's kind of like not a hot take, but like the prediction in the future. I was saying I think it could be with someone like Devin Booker. So off the top, and in my opinion, like I said, I think that's what Jason Tatum might need. In my opinion, like he's going to need to be next to a real star. And I don't know off the top of my head, but like how much more expensive is Jason Tatum than Devin Booker? I know Devin Booker's risen a little bit, but
I think he's a little bit more
yeah.
expensive. He's not much more expensive.
Oh,
I think
really?
maybe like 30 or 40%. I don't know what the percentage is. He is slightly more expensive, but also he's done more. I mean, we could go on, but I think he's done more in the playoffs, which has to be counted for something.
Oh, for sure. And he's a really good player, and he's also a winning basketball player, which is very, very important. Um, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's the fun thing. Hopefully,
No one knows.
we'll keep this podcast going. Who knows? Maybe 4 years from now, you'll be calling me an idiot for not believing in Jason Tatum after he won Finals MVP. But okay, last Q&A question: buying tips to get good prices while the basketball season is ongoing.
Okay, this is a good question. Um, like I think buying is like extremely important. Obviously, knowing when to sell is important too, but knowing when to buy, who to buy, and what to pay is extremely important and critical if you want to have an edge in this market, right? Because now it's super popular. There's a ton of people that are in their free time looking up cards, buying cards, things of that nature. So when to buy, first of all, like I always like auctions that are ending on days that aren't Sunday in the evening or Thursday in the evening. I kind of like generally if there's an auction that's ending Wednesday morning, go figure. It usually ends for less because there's less people on their phone. People are at work. People aren't on their computer at home. So like generally auctions that are ending in kind of kooky hours or like working hours throughout the day generally are a good time to buy. But like the other thing is like the off season. Like these markets are very seasonal. Um, so like the basketball card market, you talked about it. Luka's stuff is up from where it was when he was playing the Clippers in the playoffs last year. Um, and like before the year, Mahomes stuff was reaching crazy all-time levels. So you have to realize that a lot of the value is driven from hype. So for me, like a lot of times, good time to buy is in the off season or at off hours on eBay, and then I try as much as I can to buy maybe 75% of the stuff I buy on Instagram. Um, there's a ton of people there. I think there's like some accounts have like 20,000 plus followers. So there's already a huge market there, and you save them like the 10% fees, and then you can often get stuff for 90% or 85% of what you would have paid on eBay, especially if you're considering tax and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think those are good points. The one that comes to mind immediately for me is be flexible, be very flexible, especially if it's during the season. Um, if you want to invest in Tatum, I have some bad news. You are almost never going to find a deal on a Prism PSA 10. It's just not, if that's just off the top of my head, if that's an $800 card, you're not going to get it for 600 or 550. It's just not going to happen. Um, so if you want to invest in Tatum, look at everything. Have a lot of things on your eBay watch list. Have a select on there, especially with these auctions, in optics. Sometimes I've seen things where it's like, oh, I wanted to buy a select PSA 10 for $200. That's what I'm willing to spend on it. And then I see, okay, a silver is about to end for like $299. So okay, maybe you need a little bit more capital, but even though that's not the card I was necessarily wanting to go after, I see an opportunity.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to, like I said, especially if you're young and maybe you have more limited capital, but you have more time on your hands, just keep bidding, just keep putting out offers. And if you know the market and you know the prices and you pick your spots, you can like, especially like I said, if you're only gonna buy one card, you're only gonna buy two cards, really pick your spot. And I know people who make a whole living off of just like literally buying an auction at a weird time and then flipping right away.
Yeah.
So imagine if you buy it at that weird time, you're already under $200, goes up another 200, you're in a really good spot.
Yeah. And I think those margins are really crucial, especially as people, are using cards as an investment platform like stocks, but they're investing in cards. I think understanding that like a 10%, getting something for 90% or 85% can often be the difference maker. You don't want to be nickel and diming people because that will also turn people off and they'll think you're greedy and you're just trying to make money off them. But you want to find like mutually beneficial situations. Like there's a lot of time working on Instagram. If I've dealt with them before, maybe I'm using friends and family and we save, a couple more percentage points. So I think, like you said, being flexible. Oftentimes I'll like target a player. I'll be like, I'm buying this guy for the next week. I'll pick up 10 to 12 cards. And I'd say maybe, 6 of those are just eBay auctions. And then the other 6, I'm reaching out to people on Instagram. Hey, do you know someone? Are you? And they'll often say, hey, this account, this account, this account. And like, it'll lead to real substantial sales. Do not be afraid to put feelers out and be aggressive because you have to be aggressive to make money.
Yeah, we might have to save this for another episode, but because it's going to be an in-depth thing. But I've been meaning to ask you because I have not had much success on Facebook or Instagram, um, specifically like on Facebook, for instance. I mean, if you think about it, the fees, right? A Luka Doncic card that's $700, that guy is losing almost $100 to fees. So in between 700 and 600, there's a spot in there that's very beneficial to both of you. Um, and I have not had success finding that sweet spot. Me personally, Instagram is kind of like weird to me, like the stories, and you have to be looking. You mentioned putting out feelers. I mean, that's something I haven't done, so maybe I should look into that. But um, that does remind me, though, like grinding on Instagram. If you have time, utilize that time. Like when I first started, I looked up every single spelling of Gilgeous Alexander. Like I was like, people are spelling it wrong, and I got a
Probably
nice,
right.
I got a nice National Treasures patch, triple patch out of 25 rookie for $60 because it was spelled wrong.
Yeah. And
So
like people make killings, like you said, there's people that actually have their entire game plan is to capitalize on that. Um, yeah, I think you hit on a lot of good points, and I think we could have an hour-long conversation on this.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, we definitely
and
could. But
there's only going to be more and more platforms for people to, for you to get cards on. Like you said, you have these new websites where people are listing cards or check out my cards. There's a ton of different websites, right? It's not just eBay is the end all be all.
yeah,
And the other thing I would challenge people, like once again, is to like put the emotions aside. Like don't like everyone rushes to buy a player after they put up 50. And it's like I would just caution you to say, who's gonna put up 50 in a month? They're like, find the player before that big game. Because there's you don't want to be overpaying or paying a premium just
yeah,
because someone had one
and
crazy game.
I'll leave it on this note. And once again, neither of us claim to be the smartest guy in the world or the card expert. But when I look at the graph of like Bull and I see the buy at the very top, I'm like, who bought that though? I was like, who was like, you know what? I need to buy. I need to get
Yeah.
in.
I mean, a lot of people bought it. A lot of people did, which is
Yeah.
crazy to me. But
Well, that's the we'll leave it on. Don't be the guy chasing Bull gains. At least, hey, sneaky tip right now, not bad. Bull. I said it, but once he booms, don't chase. I'll say that.
don't
Um,
chase.
but all right, guys, that's it for the first episode. If you like it, please like, comment down below. If you guys want us to keep us going, anything you want to hear about, definitely your Q&A questions if you have any for the next episode. And we're gonna keep it coming. Thanks for coming on, Tristan.
Troy, thanks for having me on. Super excited to get the first one done, and I'm excited to do some more too.
Definitely. I look forward to it. All right. Catch you next time.